This week on Brummeets World.
I just feel like if there was just some connective tissue, it would have been far more
I
satisfying.
love that. The idea of her being like, he met some girl at a ski lodge, and all of a sudden,
just mirror in the face, bro.
When this boy meets world.
What up, bros?
What up, bros?
And welcome to Bruh Meets World.
When it's Bruh Meets World.
Your Boy Meets World fan cast. I am Ceej.
And I'm Tony Curtis.
What is going on, Toto?
I am very, very excited to be here with you today to discuss this episode. That's what's going on with me.
Absolutely. This episode is season 7. I can tell now.
Season 7 already. 2 episodes in, and I'm like, for real, season 7? For real, Cory, season 7?
Season 7 is gonna be a journey, and honestly, I think it's with our knowledge and our understanding of Pod Meets World and what they go through, and the more that we learn about how television shows are made, and we meet the writers and the actors and all this other stuff, and we just kind of see like how sometimes the industry influenced the show itself, like the art at the end of the war. I find season 7 is going to be a great think piece on how we got here. Because when we think about the things that we know about Boy Meets World and what we loved about Boy Meets World, and then we see where we get to, I'm like, because I realized here's what I did. I looked at last week's episode. I was listening to it, to like find the social clips. And I also listened to our finale of season 6, just to kind of get some framework. And I realized one of the problems that we're having is Boy Meets World was set on the premise of a boy who doesn't know about the world and he's learning things as he goes.
Sure.
And we were indentured to him because we were like, I also don't know. And I also am learning, so I'm taking this journey with you. That's like what really like made us relate.
100%. Our own confusion of the world around us was being reflected through the central character.
Correct. We have reached a place to where Cory is no longer curious and therefore no longer really learning. He is telling us, and he seems to think that he has all the answers in a way that younger Cory didn't. And I think that that's what's actually we're responding to as an audience, of being like, what is going on? Who is this? What is this show? It went from, hey, boy meets world in real world scenarios, to boy thinks he knows everything, follow his journey. And you're like, but I don't want to be with him.
Bro,
you know what I'm saying?
I think you hit the nail on the head, because now that we're at an age, even like if we're aging with the show, like as we were when we were first watching it, we are no longer learning along with Cory. All of the other characters in the audience now seems to be smarter than Cory. So he is no longer our avatar. Right. We now have avatars through Shawn, through Topanga, through these other characters who are more reflective of who we were at that age, or who are more realistic in a way. So Cory can't be our avatar. They are. And you know what? They are all annoyed with this dude. Therefore, we are all annoyed with this dude. And I don't think that was coming through when they were first putting this together.
Absolutely. All right. So I love what you said. But before we get, this is also a good episode to talk about that, like the thesis statement of Cory learning lessons and us going along with him. And where we are now as like a season 7 episode. But before we get into that, I do want to talk about a legendary icon of the television space. We are recording this the day that Norman Lear died. And for those of you who don't know, Norman Lear is a legendary TV producer and showrunner who gave us works like All in the Family, Maude, Sanford and Sons, Good Times, The Jeffersons, Different Strokes. Like, if you like television, Norman Lear is responsible for giving you sitcoms with a message, sitcoms that kind of helped pave the road for so many people. And I would be bold enough to say we would not have TGIF the way that we knew it without Norman Lear's laying the groundwork.
100%. And I don't think, modern audiences can understand the filmography you just threw out, like that IMDb that you just threw out, how popular all of those shows were, and specifically how important a lot of those shows were to the Black community, who he not only gave a voice to, but he also were able to paint in a compassionate light to the rest of America. Everyone fell in love with George Jefferson, not just Black people. So there was so much that was contributed to our culture through Norman Lear. The Good Times, painting. I've walked into so many Black people's houses who have Sugar Shack in their house because of Good Times. It's such a cultural thing. And so this is a big deal, I think, not just to television, but specifically to what we're talking about, to marginalized groups and how they're represented on television.
Absolutely. And what's crazy is Janet Jackson was on Good Times as a child. So this was not that long ago. Just to give you a frame of reference, Janet Jackson was on the show Good Times as a child, and that's how long ago, or how short of amount of time it's actually been since television was revolutionized by just the presence of Black people being able to share their stories.
100%.
Yeah. So wanted to give some credit to Norman Lear. Also, before we do, as we usually tell you guys, reach out to us at brummiesroad@gmail.com. We love hearing from you. You guys have been very active. You've been active on all of our socials, the threads, the Instagrams, everything. A little later on in the show, we will read some of your questions and have conversations about it. But if you want us to talk about something that you have an ideas on, specifically with Boy Meets World or anything like that, reach out to us at brummiesroad@gmail.com or at brummiesworld on all of the social platforms.
All of them.
All of them. We own all of them.
We everywhere.
Okay. So that said, TC, I think it's time that we get into this episode.
Yeah, I think it's time we do, because there's a lot to be said.
Okay. So I guess this is the tell me about it. Okay.
Tell us about it. Cory tries to save the day, interjects into Lawrence's lives, only to learn sometimes love can die. Tell us about it. Eric and Jack are a joke, so they fight the girls to regain their place, only to end up getting punched in the face.
We got a 2-chord. I love it.
I was feeling singy. I was feeling musical, guys.
I love it. Look at that. You guys, this is season 7, episode 2, For Love and Apartments. Cory and Shawn head to Pittsburgh to mend things between Topanga's parents, portrayed by a new Rhiannon? How do you say that?
I kept calling her Rihanna. I know that's not her name, but I
don't
just
call her Riri.
I call her Riri in all my notes. That works.
Riri. A new Riri and Jedediah.
Brand new.
After some persuasive talk, they learn about Jedediah's affair with a new woman named Marie. In a B storyline, Rachel, Angela, and Topanga challenge Jack and Eric to a wrestling match for the apartment's rights. The girls emerge victorious, leaving Eric vowing for revenge.
Yep.
That's what we got. All right, let's talk about our new Riri and Jedediah in roll call. We get Marsha Cross as Rhiannon, or Riri.
Very young Marsha Cross.
And Mark Herlick as Jedediah. I actually, I've seen Mark around, and Mark was always one of those that guys that I was like, you're good. You feel like television is where you belong. You got a good face, good structure,
good hair. Yeah,
good hair. And this television show loves hair. And Marsha and Mark, they give us good hair.
Yeah, they do give us good hair. Do they give us the characters that have been established throughout the course of this show?
No.
Was there any discussion from anyone to say, hey, this is how we have written both of these characters prior? this is who they are now. It just doesn't feel like this was even a conversation that was happening on set. It feels like these two got hired and was like, hey, you're this girl's parents. That's it.
Absolutely. By the way, this is 2 scripts ago we met new people.
Two scripts. That's the sloppiness of season 7 that we're getting into, by the way. They
Like,
couldn't
y'all
even
didn't-
bring Annette O'Toole back. Like, what?
Like, it was 2 scripts ago, and again, it was season 6 and season 7, but still, I feel like somebody, like, y'all don't remember the table read? Like,
Not only that, it's kind of irresponsible to set up a conflict around 2 people's marriages breaking up and not have contracts for those 2 characters to return to play those characters.
So I'm actually going to say this. I'm going to say this to you now, and I will talk to you off camera about why I think this is relevant later. But I looked at season 6 finale, last week's episode and this episode, and I realized it would work so much better if you do one thing, and that is you remove Jedediah from season 6 finale. If you remove him, because if you remember, watching it, we were like, who is this guy? He's a whole different type of a person that we've got to know, and his energy doesn't feel fatherly. It doesn't feel Lawrence-y. It doesn't feel we're not emotionally tied to him in any kind of way. And if you remove that performance and you make it just Topanga's mother coming to town, that is it. That episode still works. You can literally give Annette O'Toole all of his dialogue almost, and it would still work if it's just Topanga's mother. And if you do that, then when we meet a new Topanga's father in this episode, it's fine. It's absolutely fine.
Bruh, sounds great. I'm already exhausted from the acrobats we have to do to try to make this shit work. Truly, if you don't have the ingredients for a sandwich, don't offer me a sandwich. If you don't have these characters lined up in a way that works with the story, don't give it to me. Give me something else. Why are they the main thing from season 6 when they were never introduced before the end of season 6? And now we're still dealing with them in an irresponsible way because you handled it irresponsibly at the end of the season. I really don't know what was happening behind the scenes that made it so these 2 actors didn't return. I'm just saying, as an audience member, binging this show, if I were to go straight from the season 6 into season 7, it would be such a, like, I don't know, like, I would be so, like,
but remember, we weren't serialized and we weren't binging. So that's not an excuse, by the way.
That's not an excuse, because at the beginning of every premiere, they do a flashback to the finale. So it's no excuse, because you are literally showing us flashbacks of actors you don't have.
I'm not fighting against you, and I'm not. I agree with you. The only thing I was going to say is you were like, I need you to bring back season 6, which I agree with. But I do feel like there was a way to do this, but what you need to do is bring in Topanga. Topanga needs to be more involved in this storyline.
I was going to say, that's the thing. Like, we're saying they should have done this. Why are the parents even at Feeney's wedding? Why not just have Topanga got this news and we focus all that time on Topanga?
Correct. And but by the way, again, I will go back. And the only thing is, I know that we have to do Boy Meets World. This is a show about Cory, and we've talked extensively about the fact that Cory does not need to be a good person. And I actually feel like in this episode, they show Cory's annoyingness to be a fault, and they also have him learn a lesson. So in this particular episode, I agree with it. However, you bring Topanga in to actually sell this storyline of her parents. That's it. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I know we're going to go through like some more specifics of the breakdown of the plot, but I just want to say that they really had the opportunity to make up for the mess that was last week's episode. They really had an opportunity to take Cory's naivete and turn it into a lesson he desperately needed to learn, and a lesson that I feel like a lot of like young college kids can relate to. Of you grow up watching Disney movies, you think love is a certain way, and then you have to come to terms with the reality of it. I feel like that is a great lesson for Cory to learn and for the show to focus on. But I just feel like they have made him so obnoxious that I'm having I can't appreciate that lesson that they're trying to give. I can't, because it's for a character that I think it's wasted on.
Here's the thing. I agree with you because, first of all, let's talk about how we open up. We open up with Cory being like, well, first of all, we open up with Shawn being a little bit like, hey, these are adults.
I wrote down the dialogue because I had to write it down because it sounded so cheesy to me the way the show actually opens with, we're putting Topanga's parents back together. Cory, I know you think we could do anything, but we can't. Why not, Shawnee? Between the two of us, there's nothing we can't do. It just sounded like, I realized my annoyance with the show is that it's sounding more and more like Kid Gets Acquainted with the Universe. The little meta show they were using to make fun of Boy Meets World. Now that dialogue now sounds in line with this like actual canon dialogue. And that's the problem I have. But that's just a distraction. We can just focus on what they said.
No. And I agree with you because here's what's funny is we interviewed Mark Letman recently and he was like, there's nothing that these guys can't do. And I feel like that is what the writer's room heard, but they don't still have the same conviction that Mark had, and they don't understand how to put that on the page without saying just that. You know what I mean? And I like, just going back to it, Shawn being like, hey, these are adults. We don't get to play games with adults. And this is like real life things. It's fine when we're doing our hijinks, but this is like someone's marriage. We can't interfere. Cory comes in and he's like, not only are we going to, he goes to Topanga, I'm going to fix you. I'm going to fix you, Angela. I'm going to fix you, Shawn. Everyone's going to fall in line.
Yep.
And then I'm going to take a bath because I've earned it. I force you all to bend to my will. And I do like that, they have Topanga be like, hey, don't make fun of me. You're being an insensitive jerk.
Finally, someone calls him out. I love that she's like, I'm over playing along with these games anymore. Old Topanga may not have said anything, but like, no, I'm calling you out. You're being insensitive. You're not listening to anything I'm saying. You were like, why are you? He says, she said, the only relationship I believed in more than our own is dead. And his response is, turn that frown upside down. Like telling a woman to smile when she's going through a catastrophe. Have we not all not learned? First of all,
he did not learn, but you're right. This is very much, why are you not smiling? He literally says, turn that frown upside down. And on top of that, he is being insensitive to what she is saying to him because it doesn't fit what he wants. It doesn't fit his narrative. And what's crazy is, you pointed this out last episode, 2 episodes ago, we open up with him being like, I don't know if we're ready to get married. I've been having bad dreams. I'm very nervous. The 2 episodes ago might as well be 4 seasons ago, the way that they're writing Cory now. 100%. It's like they don't remember what he said literally months ago.
They don't give us, as an audience, a reason to not only believe his convictions, but to root for him in his pursuit of his dreams. Like, I'm actively rooting against him. Don't go to Pittsburgh. Don't do that.
Because here's the thing, there's a way to make this storyline work. If Cory, in the beginning of the season finale of last episode, is like, I don't know if we should get married. Plot point, then Topanga, because Topanga at that point in time is like, I'm very secure. Topanga finds out her parents are separating. At the end of that, we have an opportunity. We don't do this actually, but we have an opportunity for Cory to get what he wanted, which was, he wasn't sure if he wants to get married. Now, guess what? We may not be getting married.
Take that choice away from him. Great.
That's a great thing for us to deal with. I thought I didn't want to get married, but now I actually do. And then season 7 opens up and he's like, I thought I didn't want to get married, but I know that I do. So I need to fight for this. And I need to make my fiance's only other relationship that she has to compare. I need to make that work, because if that can work, then we can work. That is what we should have done. Instead, we get this turn at the beginning of season 7 where Cory's like, nope, love is a real thing. Not only do I know that 100%, but I will ignore the fact that you had this life-altering, traumatic thing happen to your only family that you know outside of me.
Yeah.
And every time you try to complain about it, I'm going to say, why aren't you smiling? Where's your smile at? Can I get a little smile?
100% to all of that. And the thing that's kind of disappointing is that I feel like they really had an opportunity to make this into a more fun Parent Trap type of situation. But instead, they make Cory so annoying and so obnoxious and so entitled that we're not having fun with this, even though we could have. That could have been where the humor came from. They could have made romance and love really be the main focus, but it wasn't romance for the sake of romance. It wasn't love for the sake of love. It was love for the sake of manipulation of someone else. And like, I mean, I don't want to move too far ahead, but at one point Shawn says something like, oh, he did all of this for you, Topanga. He did all of this for you. And I'm like, he's done nothing for Topanga at any point. All of this has been for himself.
We're going to come back to that, because if you think I'm going to let that slide, no, we're having a full on, I may have a whole other podcast for that alone. But anyway, you're right. So they decide to go to Pittsburgh. And I will say again, they give Shawn the most minimal of motivation in joining, because at first Shawn's like, I don't want to go to Pittsburgh, and he's really funny on his reasons why. And I thought that was a little good, but then Angela and him are not in a good place, so he's like, I'll do anything to get it back. Let's go. Let's believe in love again.
No, Shawn went from let's not do this, I don't want to participate. Angela comes in, tells him something she's already told him, and that was his motivation to be like, oh, okay, now I'll do anything. And I'm like, nothing has changed since last episode for you, bro.
But not only that, what's really upsetting to me is Shawn then stops doing anything. Shawn is literally there just as a side character.
Yeah,
he's
passive.
So passive. He's doing nothing. And it's really funny because you and I have been talking to writers and been looking at television and all this other stuff. I've really started to enjoy the art of screenwriting and storytelling and all this other stuff. And we used to get that in Boy Meets World, and we're not anymore.
I'm going to push back a little bit, because I do think that Shawn serves a central purpose when he goes along with Cory, which is to ask the question, wait, Cory, what was the reason that they broke up? Is a question that he poses a few times, and I feel like it's a question that Cory isn't considering. Should Shawn participate? Probably more, and not be as passive? Probably. But I think he does serve a purpose in the script in terms of presenting Cory with a question that he is not asking, which is what actually happened between the two of them.
100%. But what I'm saying is we don't get that. Like, if you were to have Shawn be there knowingly and be like, I see this, I see ahead, and I see what you're about to learn right now, and I don't know how it ends, but I know that you're not asking the right questions, and I'm more so here to witness you learn a lesson, I'd be on board with that. But that's not what they have Shawn do. They literally have him there to pose those questions and then literally sit on the sideline.
Yeah.
He's commentary. And that's what's lacking. And I'm so sorry for everyone, because I know we love these characters, and I think it's because we love these characters that we get so passionate, because it's like, there is a way to make this work. You guys aren't allowing these characters to be who we know them to be. Shawn had a really intense conversation with Eric 2 episodes ago, and it was a way of him being active and being like, hey, I'm listening to you, I see you, and whatever you want to do, I'm here for you. This is how I relate to you. He can be that exact same way of pulling Cory aside and be like, Cory, I'm going to go on this mission with you, but I want you to really ask yourself, why may they have not be together in the first place? What's going on here?
I agree with that. But can I tell you what my main problem with Shawn was this episode?
What?
Is that we spent, what's this episode, 22 minutes long, 21 minutes long? How much time did we spend on this brand new made-up storyline that Jedediah has had beef with Shawn since forever? You are introducing new conflict that we need to waste time resolving instead of actually dealing with conflicts that are at play. It seems like a waste. It seems like a poor excuse to bring Shawn into the storyline a little bit more. And I also think that the Jedediah that's been established would not have had any of those feelings about Shawn at that age. Season 3 Jedediah would have been bringing vegan muffins down to the basement for them to you know what I mean? It's just not the motivation of the Jedediah we know. And to that point, I think both of them, or maybe just Cory, calls him Mr. Lawrence, just to show you how far we've gone from the Jedediah that was originally established.
To your point, I got so upset because I'm looking at this Jedediah and I like his house, his apartment, everything about it doesn't feel like anything that we would have known, or like there's no like hint of the Jedediah that we would have known, let alone someone who would parent Topanga.
Yeah.
None of that is there. No one who would name their child Topanga is living within this character.
Sure.
However, and so I was like, oh, whatever, they moved away. But then we meet new Riri, and guess what? She's wearing like a knitted flow. She's watering plants. It's a little of the hippie lifestyle. And I'm like, oh, so you remember who Topanga's family is supposed to be. However, for some reason, you stopped Jedediah being that person, even though he was established as that person.
Yeah.
And then you made Riri this person, even though we had never met her before, and she can be whoever you want her to be.
To be real with you, I didn't even read Riri as being this kind of throwback, more hippie vibe. I just thought the flower dress was a 90s fashion thing. Like, there was nothing about either of them that felt organically Topanga.
Here's the thing. I'm not saying I'm looking for it, but if you look at that knitted flow, the very flowy and natural atmosphere and setup, I'm telling you, it was intentional. Someone was
felt like Phoebe from Friends.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Phoebe from Friends would be someone more aligned to who we expect Topanga's parents to be. And all I'm saying is Jedediah was established as that kind of quirky person.
Sure. And
we had never met Riri. So she could be anybody. Why would you switch it?
Yeah.
Why? That's it. Go ahead.
I was just going to clarify that when I said Phoebe, I meant in the fashion, because I do feel like the Phoebe character from Friends would actually be a better representation for Topanga's mom than this one. But one thing I do want to say is that I do like second Riri better than first Riri.
Agreed.
Nothing against Annette O'Toole, who I think is wonderful, but she felt less like the early seeds of Topanga than this Riri did. So I will say that.
I agree, because the thing that Marsha Cross brings into it is a confidence and a self-assurance where she is aware of Cory. She has a history with Cory. And I even believe that history. She is just very steadfast in her stance. And when she says to Cory, are you sure that he wants to see me?
Can I just tell you this? To me, it felt like when the Lawrences finally get together, it feels like two actors meeting each other for the first time. It feels like no one bothered to even catch them up on the finale of season 6, and they just threw both of them into this episode. There's no chemistry. I don't even feel tension. Like that, Jedediah arrives and he's like, oh, hey, what's up? And I'm just like, I get that you're trying to write this awkward, but what it actually comes across as is two people with zero history filming a scene that requires immense amount of history to be present. And so that's the thing that for me, I had a really hard time getting on board with.
I didn't notice that, but when I reflect on it, I don't think you're wrong. I think that I love their individual performances, but again, as a fan of the show, I'm constantly asking myself, did anyone in the writer's room remember who we're talking about?
Yeah.
Or remember why these characters are here? Like, they don't bring up Topanga. Only once do we bring up Topanga, and that is to ask Cory to lie. And I will be coming back to that as well. But that is the only time we bring up Topanga, and everything else, the conversations is centered around Cory, why are you doing this? Cory, love doesn't last sometimes. Cory, I'm talking to you as if you are my child and not the fiance of my daughter.
Yeah. I was just going to say my main problem with these conversations that Cory is having is that he's incredibly disrespectful to both of these people who are going through a divorce. Like, he has no sensitivity to Jedediah, making fun of his living situation. He's clearly in a life transition right now. Like, shit on him while he's fucking down, Cory. And then he just keeps like doing this thing where he repeats his question like a damn parrot over and over again until he gets the answer he wants, which I think is kind of manipulative. Like, I think it's kind of like I think it's just one of the more toxic traits he has, is that And he feels like, well, love is on my side. So anything I do is justifiable because I'm on the right side of love. And it's like, I like someone needs to check this dude. And even both of these adults are kind of skirting around doing it.
Well, what you said, which I really do like, is Cory is straight up manipulative lately. And that's what I think is rubbing the audience the wrong way, is that Cory is not empathetic or sympathetic. He's just manipulative. And he's manipulative to his friends. He's manipulative to his fiance. He's manipulative to these two people who are going through a divorce. And again, he lies to them. And instead of it being like a fun parent trap thing, he just straight up lies. And Riri's like, does he want to see me?
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, I wouldn't tell you he did if I didn't believe, or if he didn't, I would never lie to you and say that he doesn't if he did it. And Shawn just sits there, is like, oh, and you're like, wow, she straight up asked you. It'd be different if it was implied, like, oh, you never asked directly. She straight up asked you, are you sure? I am putting my heart on the line. You don't know the backstory.
See, you're judging him. You're judging him like he's a normal person, right? He has love on his side. He can lie. He can bend the rules. He has full agency to manipulate any situation because he is on the right side of love. Dude, were you not watching this?
I mean, you bring up valid points. I'm just saying it is really, really disturbing to see him like look someone in the eyes and lie to them. And then you be like, but I'm supposed to be on your side.
Yeah, totally.
Some things about the storyline that I do want to call out is he goes to Pangela. And I was like, first of all, did Cory like start the Brangelina thing? Like the portmanteau of two names?
Yeah.
I like it. Topangelo was good. But I want to call that out, but he was.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you had asked like about him bringing up Topanga, and I was just reading my notes, and I don't think he even brings Topanga up to Jedediah until he says, oh, like you, like he doesn't bring her up to the parents until he's like, by the way, I'm here because I want something. Your daughter doesn't believe in love anymore, and that's kind of affecting my life. No big deal. That's not like the main reason I'm here, but it's kind of the main reason I'm here.
Again, we know, like, again, the audience knows that these are Topanga's parents, even though it's the first time that we're meeting them. But there's no real emphasis on Topanga. None of them go, oh, Cory, where's Topanga? Like, again, a throwaway line of, like, is Topanga parking the car? Is she here? Like, why are you here and not her? None of that is asked. And when you don't do that, it just makes the entire thing feel less real and connected, because yes, you're telling me that these people have a history, but the reason that they have a history isn't even acknowledged again until the end, when Riri goes to Cory and says, hey, you just found out that Jedediah is a cheater. Don't tell my daughter because I don't want her to think of her father differently. Ooh. And I'm like, again, so you are protecting the father, even though in this show you see it worthy enough of cutting off your relationship with him. Yeah. You don't want her to think differently of her father, even though two episodes ago, we met a man who was very unlike the Jedediah we had met previously. So was already like the seeds were planted for her to think differently about her father, and her not wanting to marry because her father cheated and she no longer trusts men. Great storyline. Yeah. But instead, you give a newlywed advice to lie to his fiance and hold on to that secret.
Well, can I just say that I felt sympathy for Riri's character at that moment, because I'm sure she's like, Cory's the last motherfucker I would ever want to trust with this information, but he shoehorned his way into this situation to where he found out some shit he wasn't supposed to find out. So now I have to ask you, the guy who I know has the biggest mouth in the world, to stay silent about this. And I just felt that, like, I was like, man, I would never want to trust Cory with the secret. We saw what he did with Shawn's poetry book. Like, this guy doesn't respect boundaries. You know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, it turns out that so far he hasn't spilled the beans on this, but it's just looming. It's gonna happen.
Of course. But what I'm saying is, and I agree with you, I'm saying I want that. I want Rihanna to be like, are you happy? Now
Yeah.
you know something you weren't supposed to know. And now you have to keep that secret. Like, I want Rihanna to be like, oh, not only did you lie to me, Cory, but now you know something and you have to carry the secret that I've been carrying.
Oh, can I also say that in real life, if Cory were to ever convince this couple to get back in the same room together, there's no way these two adults are like, maybe our daughter's friends from high school should also be present while we have this very serious conversation. It's like, no, we're going to have our own like little sit down and maybe we'll alert you on it, but it's really none of your business. Thank you. Get out of my house.
Also, they do this they do it for their setup and for the surprise. But again, this show has started telling instead of showing.
Yeah.
And what you do in that episode, how you make the storyline work is Cory says everything that he's saying. Rion says everything that she says. And then Jedediah shows up with Marie. That's how you do that reveal. That's how you let it be known.
Can I tell you what I really wanted?
What?
I wanted it to just be this thing of just like, yeah, he fell in love with someone else. And then like, who did you fall in love with? And he says the name and it's Lauren. Obviously not the same Lauren, but just the thing to show Cory that like, oh, maybe I do understand the bendiness of like how love can like fall apart a little bit better because this is calling back to my own. Like, I just feel like if there was just some connective tissue, it would have been far more satisfying.
I love that. The idea of her being like, he met some girl at a ski lodge.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you know, like
just mirror in the fucking face, bro.
Yes, because guess what? Then you put it in, you nailed it. You put it in a way that Cory understands, Cory can reflect on, and Cory not only understands the position that everyone's in, he understands why Jedediah did what he did. He understands why, just like he tried to keep that information from Topanga, he now needs to keep this information from Topanga. And you actually bring so much more reflection and depth to the situation if we do a little bit of reflecting.
Just give us a little bit of nuance. Just nuance, because what they're doing is painting Cory as this like naive, incredibly naive, love conquers all, fairy tales, love always works out guy. And it's like, your best friend is Shawn Hunter. Like, how so delusional into thinking that love never dies? Like, I just can't believe that this is the hill you're trying to die on. Like, there could be other things that we're focusing on other than the lesson that maybe love dies sometimes. I just don't think that that's the lesson, where it could just be like, hey, love is complicated. Sometimes you can love people and still hurt them. Sometimes you can make mistakes that you can't bounce back from. Like, there's other things we can focus on here other than thinking that he is this 13-year-old kid still who believes that love is just going to conquer everything. And I don't think that I think he's smarter than that. I want to believe Cory's smarter than that.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not going to lie. I think that there's a large percentage of people to this day who feel like love is overwhelming and constantly passionate, and you will always do any and everything for someone. And they don't see it as what we talked about: selfless, empathetic, downtimes, sometimes betrayal. Like, love is complex, as you said. Love doesn't necessarily die, but sometimes you've made a move so far that the love isn't enough.
Yeah.
That is a great lesson to learn. If what you had said is, hey, like you had said, hey, there's still love here, but I'm with Marie now, or something like that, where we can see the love and we can see that these people do in fact love each other. However, Jedediah has gone too far. Yeah. It's already like, that's a great lesson for Cory to learn. And especially, I will not let this go. The idea of you bringing it back to Lauren, I think is so brilliant, because it actually does bring stakes in for Cory, where Cory is like, oh, not only was I close to doing this myself, but now I have something to look out for in my upcoming marriage.
100%. And I do want to say that, like, Riri even goes as far as, like, she says, Like, how did you ever stop? Cory says, how did you ever stop loving each other? And she almost stops herself from saying, like, I never stopped loving him. And I wish she would have just said, like, it's not about love dying, Cory.
Correct.
Sometimes there are bigger things than love. That
Correct.
should have been the lesson from all of this clusterfuck of an episode.
Absolutely. Last little thing I want to say about this. Well, two more things. One is the kind of like throwaway line of Shawn making out with Topanga.
Mhm.
And I was like, wait, did that happen? But like, then they quickly take it back, and I was like, no, give me that conflict. Like,
Yeah.
Topanga's allowed to have a history, and like, I feel like someone threw it out there as like a thing, and then they're like, no, we can't do that. Topanga's virginal. She would have never. And it's like, why not? Shawn was the hottest thing with them growing up.
Also,
And
we've seen her having crushes on Eric. So
she's allowed to be, you know, like it's allowed to have like this little secret, whatever.
she's allowed to have a hoe face.
Exactly. Topanga deserves. But also, we get back to the school, and Topanga rightfully is like, you went to Pittsburgh, you interfered with my parents' marriage. What is wrong with you? And Shawn goes, hey, first of all, he actually touches Topanga, and I was like, nah.
Well, he never got called out for pushing Angela, so
exactly. But he touches Topanga and says, hey, back off. He did this for you.
off.
Be appreciative. And
He was,
I was
good.
Like,
he was good. And I was like,
no,
was
he
he?
wasn't.
Or
No,
was
he
he just
wasn't.
annoying?
No, he wasn't. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then immediately they have Topanga be like, you violated my parents' privacy for me? That's so sweet.
Was not for you, Topanga. Sorry.
Yeah, but like, again, like, let's even put that aside. She's justifiably angry that he went and violated her parent, like, not even her privacy, her parents, her family's right to privacy.
Yeah.
And she rightfully had a problem with that. And Shawn goes, no, he did it for you. He did it for love. And then Topanga backs down and was like, oh, I didn't know it was for love. My bad.
Can I say something about that? My interpretation of that, when Topanga did the switch of like, wait, he was good, like I want to know more. I don't think in any way had to do with like, oh, I'm so proud of Cory, I'm appreciative of his actions. It's like, wait, are there developments in my parents' relationship that I should know about? I am clearly still grieving this. And when she was talking to Cory, it felt like, wow, there's so much grief here. And I just like, in this moment, I'm like, man, if Cory had just been emotionally available for this girl when she was going through like the biggest like life transition that she's had to deal with so far, I just feel like not only would we be actively rooting for them to get back together, but like it would give Topanga incentive to be like, you know what? Yeah, baby love does die, but clearly his love for me doesn't, or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I get what you're saying, because if we were able to, but here's the thing, the fact that I didn't get what you were talking about, it's kind of the problem.
Yeah.
Like this idea of you being like, wait, Topanga wants to know. But see, I saw it a little bit differently. I saw it as Topanga already on some level knew, oh, whatever happened with my parents is irreparable. You know, like I thought, if I'm being honest, I would love, like, I totally want to rewrite this entire story arc. But what I would have loved is if Topanga had learned about her father's infidelity and didn't tell Cory.
Ooh.
Already knew about it. And I like the idea of him being like, hey, I don't think your parents are going to get back together. And her saying, yeah, I don't either. It says to me that she knew on some level. She has an understanding.
And if she knew and it had anything to do with the ski lodge or a woman named Lauren, that could have been the thing to be like, Cory, like that could have brought it back home to her. That could have been another incentive to just be like, you know what? This incident is reminding me too much of my own relationship. I need to take a step back. But there is no aha moment of like her finding out. There's all she just thinks is that her parents broke up for no reason, which doesn't motivate her character to really be making the choices. That's kind of my main problem.
Yeah.
This isn't about like, they didn't break up because they learned that love dies. You know what I mean? To me, it should have been like, their relationship, according to season 6, up until the finale, they were both planning this wedding. They were both excited. They were both seemingly in love with each other. Their love for each other never died. So why is this the lesson that is the central focus for them to learn that love can die sometimes. I understand. Like, I'm getting it. Like, I understand it. Like, it's fine. I'm with the episode. I'm with the storyline that they're trying to tell us. But to me, it just feels like, this idea that love, sometimes love dies is a good lesson, but it's not the one I think these characters needed to learn. I think.
Well, here's the thing. I actually do think it's a lesson they needed to learn, because Cory wasn't sure if he wanted to get married. So the idea of Cory kind of taking his love for Topanga.
That's losing love. That's not love dying because one of them did something to the other. If one person had done something to wrong the other and then this happened, then that could be a connective tissue. But I don't see that connective tissue that you're talking about.
Well, no, all I was going to say is that Cory starts last season, all of season 6, being like, I don't know if I want to get married. I don't know what does marriage mean, all this other stuff. And then Topanga's like, I'm secure. I've made my decision. This is what I want to do. And then her example of love is challenged, which makes her, who was the rock, now question everything. And Cory having to learn that, oh, if I don't nurture my relationship, it can fall apart. And the love that I just took for granted, i.e. Topanga's undying dedication to our marriage, will not always be there. That's a pretty good lesson. I get it. And I feel
understand
like that's
all of that.
I get it. I'm with you in the fact that, like, it makes sense for them to do, but they did not do it. Like, that, like, just simply put, the problem that you and I are having is that we are being shown these things, but there's no connective tissue. And not only is there no connective tissue, like, with the actors, with, like, the storylines, but, like, there's no connective tissue in, hey, this guy who was insecure about getting married may no longer be engaged. This woman who was 100% planning for a wedding 3 episodes ago is no longer engaged. Like all of these things. Shawn, who looks to Cory and Topanga as the one beacon of hope that love can last, is now having that be challenged. Angela, who has always had a problem with commitment, is having her fears confirmed with the fall of Cory and Topanga. So those things are all there for us to find, but they're not there on paper. None of it connects.
And so the motivations feel flat. So
correct. That's what it is. Are you ready to move on to the B storyline?
Yeah.
I do want to talk about the B storyline for a few reasons. One is that this felt very much like the one with the embryos, the Friends episode where the boys challenged the girl for the apartment. So much so that I needed to look up and see when the one with the embryos, the Friends episode, aired on January 15th, 1998. This aired October 1st, 1999.
Next year.
This is 100, in my mind, this is 100% influenced by it.
Yeah.
And they felt like a need to bring in that kind, because the one with the embryos is one of the most popular episodes in all of Friends history.
Yeah.
And it felt like someone saw that and misunderstood what made it great.
100%. And to kind of talk about this for some of our younger audiences or those who are not familiar, the one with the embryos, the episode of Friends that he's just referencing, is an episode of Friends in which Chandler and Joey compete in a game with Monica and Rachel to see who will get the bigger apartment.
Correct.
They live across the hall from each other. The boys have a smaller apartment that's kind of falling apart. The girls have a nice apartment that's bigger. And so they do this trivia game, and whoever wins the game gets the big apartment. And it was a very famous episode. You learned a lot of history about the characters, and also there was a really beautiful side story about Phoebe getting pregnant. So there was a lot going on that made the episode really lovable and the fan favorite. And I can see, now that you bring it up, I can definitely see the DNA of that within this episode.
Yeah, thank you so much. But the problem with this storyline is we don't have any reasonable reason for competition. As someone has pointed out, and as we have talked about, this is Jack's apartment. Jack bought this apartment. Jack found this apartment. Jack and Eric had this apartment years before Rachel showed up. Rachel's claim to this apartment is brand new and arguable at best.
Yeah.
Like, and if this was a competition between Jack and Rachel, even, and like they were able to like tag team someone in, like I'd be fine with it, because now it's between two people who, again, arguably have right to the apartment. But that's not what we do. We do a boys against girls, and the boys lived here first, and it's their apartment, and chances are their names is on the lease. So how do the girls have any claim to this place? I'm going elsewhere.
Honestly, if I could just start here, I don't understand why this is this central conflict. Because like we said, where there were issues with connective tissue throughout, like, how are the boys the joke of the campus for graciously allowing three women to live together? Like, how is everyone making fun of them? Why are they feeling motivated to now fight these girls for this place when they were the good guys really in the scenario for allowing them to take over the lease? And I mean, I don't know how much into the lease they even got into this. Leases are never brought up. It's television, whatever. But it just seems like an odd thing that like Feeney was like, oh yeah, everyone knows. You guys are the campus joke. And I was like, this makes no sense. This doesn't track.
Also, what's even weirder is when we open up on this storyline, we open up with Jack and Eric in a bedroom. Whose bedroom is this?
Yeah, is that supposed to be Topanga and Angela's dorm? Because it doesn't look like the dorm that they were in
because
before.
They moved out of the dorm. They moved out of the dorm.
Whose stuff is that?
Whose stuff is that? Where are we? Give me a frame of reference. Are you even apartment hunting? What is this?
Did you have a friend who said you can stay in their dorm? Give me a line of dialogue to explain why you are in a room with someone else's stuff. Because it feels like this whole thing was set up for this Backstreet Boys joke, which I feel like is, okay, fine, it's funny, but you're putting these characters in a nonsense situation for seemingly just the sake of a joke.
Yeah. We're going to come back to that Backstreet Boys moment, of course. But no, I'm with you. Is this Morgan's room? Like, where are we? I need a frame of reference to see how far they've fallen. Because the thing is, if you want, like, again, I'm sorry to go back, but it's storytelling 101.
Yeah.
If someone has fallen from grace and they are fighting for their way back to the top of the mountain, I need to know where they've fallen to. I need to have a frame of reference. Is this down the hall? Is this a different building? Is this Morgan's room? Are they looking at different apartments? What is this all they can afford? If you would have given me any kind of frame of reference, this scene would make sense. But I don't know why they're in some little girl's bedroom. I don't.
Oh, I don't think they were in a little girl's bedroom. I thought they were in a college girl's dorm room.
But point being is they're in someone else's room, and we don't know who that person is.
And you know here's the thing is that, like, hey, if you want to build a boys against girls rivalry, like, we can do that. Like, I'm down to play that game with you, but just like, why are we rushing for it to go to a full physical fight in episode 2? Like, give me some time for this conflict to build up. Like, this can be a fun thing that we do this season. It gives Jack and Eric something to do. I don't know. I just feel like if you really wanted to build a rivalry, you could have done it a lot slower. You could have shown us how far they went, to the point where they were getting kicked out of Feeney's car, let's say, and now they're like, now what do we do? And then that's the motivation. It's like, man, I'm sick of living like this, instead of everyone's making fun of us for being nice to girls.
Oh my God, a scene where we see them trying to take their stuff to Feeney's car, and Feeney being like, I changed the locks, or something like that. Now we're getting references to part 1, mind you, supposed to be part 2, and we get references that tie this in together. Like, none of this, like, it's serialized in a way, but it's not, because it doesn't seem like you read the script before this one.
Can I say something? It feels like there is actually distance between episode 1 and episode 2 in terms of filming. What I mean by that is, Eric's hair is not the same haircut that he
Yes.
had in the last episode. It's a better haircut, mind you, but like it seemed like his hair had time to grow out and they had time to do some other stuff with it. Also, if you look at Jack in episode 1 and Jack in episode 2, his body frame is completely different. And we'll talk about that in the Turned On by Hunter moment. But I just want to say that it just feels like there was time and space between when these episodes were filmed. The characters look a little different, and it feels like there's a detachment from all of the storyline that was set up in the first episode of this two-parter.
I love that you said that, because the moment the episode started, I thought Cory looked drastically different.
Yeah.
And so I think you're right. I think there was time in between these two. I don't know how much time, but it does. I immediately was like, whoa, Cory feels like he looks different. So, you know, and maybe there was, but again, your job as a showrunner is to not make me notice that distance, and it's all over this episode, because again, we keep referring to things that happened yesterday, but you would think that they've happened years ago, the way that you're talking about what happened yesterday.
100%. Hey, do you have any comments on that BSB poster thing before we move on too far from it?
Do I have comments on the BSB? First of all, interesting that it's BSB and not NSYNC, when we know the NSYNC tie to this show. So it's really funny.
Well, you know what? I was wondering if this whole thing was an inside joke that tied to for those who listen to Pod Meets World, they discuss how the boy cast members would do a little dance to Backstreet Boys before the show. And I was like, oh, is this an inside joke referencing the fact that the boys were doing that for the live performances? Maybe that's why that's there, but that's literally the only reason I could think for why it's there.
Exactly.
And if you're gonna do something like that, like be Sabrina, like give us these Backstreet Boys showing up or whatever, like give us something. Why reference Backstreet Boys and federal wrestling together in the same episode in the same plot line is so random. The juxtaposition between Mankind and the Backstreet Boys is so random.
It's a hat on a hat.
It's too many hats. It's too many hats.
Too much hats.
Too much tuna. Like I can't.
Yeah, it's honestly so. But I love what you said. First of all, again, this is my Jerick moment. The moment to just talk about Jerick, because like the fact that they're in this girl's bedroom, and first of all, they don't seem to have a problem sharing a bedroom, which I think is really interesting. They only have a problem that it's not enough room. And then
it made it seem like they were sharing that bed. That
correct.
The other bed was taken by someone else.
That's what I'm saying. They don't have a problem sharing space. In fact, I love the conversation. We're embracing the same sexness of this dynamic, which is Eric being like, we gotta go because the cute one's looking at me. And then they have an entire conversation about who's the cute one.
Yeah.
Jack chooses mine. Howie, just wanted to say, Jack and I are on the same page. But then Eric goes, I thought Nick was the cute one. And again, like they're having this conversation. And I love the embracing of that. It's played as a joke, but also it's played as a joke in a way that Boy Meets World does gay content, in the sense that it is a joke, but it's not necessarily punching down. It's just
no. I thought of it as a mirror, honestly. You're so concerned about the looks of a picture of a cute boy that you need to leave, Jack. Maybe that says more about you.
But again, that's what I'm saying. Like this show kind of toys with it in certain ways, because Jack, turned on by Jack, turned on by Hunter. Ooh. Yeah, that Hunter. Jack, first of all, did they run out of shirts for him? Like all of his shirts.
That's what I mean. His body composition is so different, because at one point Eric's like, Jack, do the arm thing. And we just have Jack flexing with like those Lawrence brother jeans that he has. And like the muscles are muscling in the way that they weren't muscling an episode prior.
But again, his clothes are so tight.
Yeah.
It's like someone bought a shirt, put it on him and said, no, this is too big. I need smaller.
Yeah, 100%.
And it fits him like a glove. If anyone can pull it off, it's Jack. However, it's interesting specifically because, again, if you are queer, you understand that we are entering the time of queer as folk. And Jack has a very queer as folk look that's going on to him. And it's right before we get to metrosexual. And it's like Matthew Lawrence is fulfilling these archetypes and he's pulling them off. I think it's great. This isn't a judgment, but it's just like, it's there. I'm sorry. I'm not reading too much into the text. You have him wearing really tight shirts with highlighter hair, and you have his most important relationship being this guy who he can't stop being around, even though he's a lovable dork. And they have conversations about which guy is cuter. I'm not silly for thinking of this the way that I'm thinking of it.
Also, okay, let's really talk about this because you wanted to make Eric's haircut a big deal, but you put it next to Jack, who has, I think, the new version of the JTT hair. What I mean by that is that in the early 90s, the bangs, the curtains, as I like to call them, where the bangs kind of make curtains on the forehead, was the central heartthrob haircut. But we move into the late 90s and the spiky, almost frosted tip look is starting to take over. And I feel like Jack owns that look in a way that Eric owned the previous look. And so to try to catch Eric up to Jack's haircut, I feel like lessens Eric's hair just by comparison. Also, I'm going to have a really hard time struggling through the season thinking that women aren't attracted to Jack and that Jack is merely stuck with Eric as his only like option for friendship or social life.
Yeah.
Where there's not like some homoeroticism attached. Like that's the only thing that can explain why Jack is spending all of his time in college with Eric.
And again, this is not new territory because the joke that Chandler Bing comes off gay has already been established. The joke that people think Jerry Seinfeld is gay has already been established.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Exactly. Like the idea of this male character who in our show is straight comes off as queer has already been established. So you can just do that. But to say, no, we were not even trying to do that. And then we look at the receipts and be like, do you want to try again? Do you want to phone a friend? Because you're right. Why is Jack that hot, that fitted in his clothes, and his only relationship that is successful is with Eric?
Can I
also isn't dating anyone?
Can I bring up something? I don't know if you watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but they actually do something really interesting where they take the two characters, Mac and Dennis, who are like supposedly best friends. And like Mac has this almost like Jack and Eric type of obsession with Dennis throughout the course of the show. And then they start playing it up more and more that they have a crush on them, until Mac eventually just comes out as gay. And now that they just accept that and write that into the storyline. And now Mac's just a fully gay character. And I was just like, wow, obviously this show aired far after Boy Meets World's end time, but it's interesting to like see a show actually try to push that storyline of friends who one of them has a crush on the other and actually, you know, push through with that. So
and yes, exactly. First of all, I love that storyline because at first it was played for laughs, but then they were like, hey, there's something here, and they didn't shy away from it. And I think very often with any show, specifically when you are dealing with queer content, they set it up and you're like, no, I'm not crazy. This, like, just based on all of the story beats, you have given me a couple. And it's fine if you don't want to make it a sexual couple. If you want to keep it platonic, that's fine. But don't tell me that it's not a couple.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I'm Jerick Hive. And that's why I'm very much just like, when we see it, I'm going to point it out.
And you know what I find to be very queer coded, and you could tell me if I'm wrong for this, but when there are these characters, or even like people in real life, guys I know in real life, who are very obsessed with looking a certain way, having a certain appearance in front of their male friends, getting the respect of their male friends so much more so than the women in their lives, that like, hey, I'm literally living to impress other men, even though I'm very straight and I love women. I'm not going to actually treat her like a person, or actually, you know what I mean? Like all of that feels very queer coded to me.
Well, again, this is a whole other conversation we do not have time for, but like a lot of the conversation lately has been about how men are homoromantic and heterosexual, meaning that they will have sex with women, but they prefer their partners be men. And it's a whole other thing, as you said, like they're dressing to impress other men. Like they want to connect with other men, and that's who they really aspire to and that's who they fixate all their time on. And women are things that they have sex with. And I said things purposely because that's how they see them, not how I believe women should be treated. We went down this rabbit hole, and I'm going to pull us back.
Please.
Really, really quickly. But by the way, I love the conversation that we had. But we have to talk about this fight in the apartment for two reasons. One is, as I said, it reminds me a lot of the one with the embryos. But the one with the embryos actually set it up to where we are going to have a friendly competition that has high stakes. But we are all playing for something. There's a winners, there's losers, there's an alternative prize at the end. Like you get this apartment, these people get this apartment. Like it's built within the world itself, i.e., the game is about how well do you know each other. And if you as friends can, whoever knows each other better wins. Like they're proven to be the better friend.
It's it's centered around a fun game that's about how good of friends are we. Friendship is at the core of it. So it makes it fun for the audience to watch and participate in as well.
Correct.
In contrast, we have these characters who get into a physical altercation.
And I was like, you are literally bringing violence in this. But what's even great, I could forgive that if we even did this as a dream episode or something. The idea that, and this brings us to our last roll call, who is Mick Mankind Foley as
Mick Foley,
Mankind. And he comes up and he bursts through the door. Again, this is surreal at this point in time. This man has burst through the apartment door that we're trying to fight for. Yeah. And we are ruining furniture and fixtures in this apartment.
Okay, can we pause for a second? Because I have to talk about the entrance of Mick Foley into this episode. To me, I was like, I know we've passed the jump the shark moment of the series, but like when he comes through and they're like, hey, we need a referee. We need a referee to referee this fight, which by the way, do you? Okay. To have a professional wrestler randomly kick down the door like he's the Kool-Aid man and say like, I'm here, let's wrestle. I literally just could not get on board. I was like,
he doesn't say I'm here, let's wrestle. He says, why am I here? And that that's your jump the shark moment.
Yeah.
When you don't have a reason for him to be here. If they were like, we need a wrestler, if we need a referee, let's go find one. And they open the door and Mankind is there moving into the apartment next door. That is a little bit surreal in itself, but it still makes it have a reason why he's there. In any other time we've done this, there is a reason. When Frankie's father shows up, there's a reason in universe. When the monkeys all come together, we've given them reasons to be here.
Yeah.
There is no reason for this wrestler to appear out of nowhere, not know why he's here, break the fourth wall, and then we all just move on with our lives as if this surreal thing just happened.
It's a wild. Yeah. You know the solution? Make his daughter the college roommate that they're in the dorm with. He wants to get rid of them, and he's, you know what? I'm going to help you guys out with this however I can. Like, that's your solution. Boom. Like, done. I want to rewind a little bit. And I feel like this is after Blutman left. We'll have to ask him about this because obviously there's a wrestling connection here. But at this point, 1999, just to kind of paint a picture for those who weren't there, Mankind was actually a very big deal in the wrestling world. He was in WrestleMania, I think in like 98 or 2000 or somewhere in between there. He was like one of like the major like 5 to 10 wrestlers that were come to mind. And wrestling was at its peak in popularity at this time with Stone Cold and The Rock and everything. So like, for this show to be like, hey, we're going to bring in something that's popular in the world right now into our show for a ratings grab during like the premieres season totally makes sense. There are so many better ways you could have utilized this character. There are so many better ways that you could have done it that didn't distract from the stories that are being told. I got really excited right before Mankind showed up because they're about to fight and Eric looks at Jack and says, dude, what did Cory do to her when Topanga's like, I have rage? And I was like, oh, are we going to talk about this? Are we going to get into it? It felt like we could have a conversation right now that won't lead to an extreme cartoonish violent scene that will actually address some of the major conflicts at hand. But instead, we enter a Family Guy-esque cartoon cutaway sequence where a professional wrestler randomly shows up, like Robert Goulet or some shit, and like is like, hey, and then they have a fight. They have a fight between the five of them. And I don't know where we're at right now with the show.
Absolutely. Like, again, we're physically fighting. And to your point, we give Topanga, I will give them credit. Topanga goes, do you know what I'm going through right now? I like that she brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have Rachel and Angela participate, and we don't give them any motivation. Nope. And again, it's just a line of dialogue. That's all it takes. And the fact that we don't get that, it feels disrespectful. I think that's what it comes down to, is at season 7, feels like you're disrespecting me as a viewer, and that is where I'm going to just like I'm not on board anymore.
You know, it's such a shame because I feel like it had to be clear to the cast at this point and to the crew at this point, and we can talk to them and see or whatever, that by season 7, everyone knew that this was the swan song. Everyone knew, like, hey, this is our last dance. You could have done so much to celebrate the history of the show, all of the things that we loved about it, and turn season 7 into like what the actual finale turned into, which was like, there was a 2-part finale, and we'll get to there, that does a beautiful job of paying tribute to the entire series. And I'm like, why wasn't the entire season that? Why, if we're going to make Cory and Topanga, like, getting married the, like, central thing, we should make Cory's love for Topanga, the romance, skyrocket beyond everything we've ever seen before. And I don't think we get more romantic than A Long Walk to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Everything since Long Walk to Pittsburgh has been Cory being entitled and saying, Topanga, you need to do this because I want it. There's never been him wooing her or trying to win her over whatsoever. So, like, I just feel like they had an opportunity to do that this season, and we don't get that at all. We get hijinks on hijinks on the hijinks.
Yeah.
It's a mess. It's a mess.
And, like, at first they argued, or it has been argued, that Eric gets dumber or things get silly because, like, you have the comedic talent that is Eric. No one here is secretly a professional wrestler, so this storyline does not make sense. Like, if it was purely Eric, maybe it would make a little bit more sense, but it's not. You have Angela throwing Jack, who, again, we very rarely seen interact with. Now all of a sudden she's throwing his face in popcorn and sandwiches. Rachel is attacking, like, is playing on Jack's inability to violate her. Even though he is being a little bit demeaning, he is also like, I'm not going to attack you. I had a relationship with you, and I don't see you as that way. And then she just fights him, and you're like, why are we doing this? What was the purpose?
You know what it feels like? Like, okay, so I was hearkening back to the big wrestling episode that was in season 3 with Griff, and like they had the big wrestling in the school moment where Cory's on the team and they're fighting. I was like, when they were in high school, they really had to take the time to explain how they got from A to Z.
Correct.
What was going on? Oh, Griff was behind the scenes. He was organizing this big fight. And so when it eventually becomes this big thing with celebrities, you can have, like, you know, Yasmin Bleeth show up and it just be like, okay, we're on board because you've explained enough.
Correct.
This show just is like, you know what? We're not even going to bother doing any of that. We're just going to have this shit happen, and if people follow it, fine. Like, it just doesn't feel like they put the time, because, like we've pointed out several times, a little bit of dialogue tweaks could have made all of this help make sense. Not that the decision to focus on the story should have been the decision that was made. Period.
Absolutely. So I want to kind of wrap this up. The last thing I want to say is I didn't see it, and I want to check before I do. Do they resolve where Eric or Jack are staying after this?
Yeah. The show ends. The closing credits are playing as Jack and Eric are back in the dorms room, in the girls' dorm, and they're picking out wallpaper for a dorm. Because you know how college guys change wallpaper every time they move into a dorm. Okay. And then Mick Foley is their roommate. And he's like, I don't care what wallpaper you pick. You just got to remove that Backstreet Boys poster because the cute one is looking at me. And that's how the show ends.
That's how it ends. How did I miss that? I was watching. I am so upset that I missed it.
Sometimes they skip to the next episode without showing the end scene. But it was just one of those things where I was just like, this is a mess. They're doubling down on a joke that didn't really work for me in the first place. So that was...
I feel robbed that I did not see that, because that would have helped me a little bit more. But that does, in a way, give us a little bit of context of like where we are. But again, if you had to do it in the tag and I missed the tag, then you didn't do it really.
Mm-mm.
And then also, okay, so it did at least conclude with where are they now? Okay, I got that. The last thing I was going to say is we kind of talked about it, but we didn't really. Cory lying to Topanga as a way to start off their relationship, because she asked him, hey, do you have any idea why my parents didn't work? Why it didn't work out? And he goes, no, I don't. And here's the thing. I think in certain ways that could be the right decision to make, to honor her mother's wishes.
Oh, I think it was. And I know we could have the conversation about whether or not it's ethical that he lied to Topanga, but in my head, it was like, that wasn't your business to know in the first place, so it's definitely not your business to tell now.
All I was going to say is, I need that to be the central conflict.
Sure.
I need the show to acknowledge, hey, you're doing a bad thing for a good reason. What does that mean? Is this a good thing? I need the show to debate.
Can I fix it?
Go.
We go back to the finale of season 6, and Topanga's parents are fighting, and Cory then tries to be like, I'm gonna fix it here and now. I'm gonna fix it here and now. And then he finds out that Jed was cheating on Riri. And then the reason why now Topanga is like, I can't marry you, is because she finds out that he kept that secret. Now we have motivation that's personal.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. First of all, yes, I don't know the rest of the season. You know more than I do. But I assume that that's where we're going. I assume at some point in time,
you're giving the show way too much credit, bro.
We're not even going to come back to this lie.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if they revisit the specific lie, but like I just feel like Topanga's parents are like hardly even brought up after they're used for this like central story point, and that's what's upsetting. That's why I always was like, why the fuck are they bringing them in to be this major central conflict when they are literally just brought in for conflict and then they disappear again? This is the last we see of them, by the way.
Okay. I'm learning new things, because if we just went through all of this and her parents don't even show up to her wedding, I have feelings. If we just went through all of this and the idea that he lied on behalf of her mother never comes back into play, again, I'm getting at my ropes end with this show, because
welcome to my life, bro.
Why set it up?
Why
do that?
Why?
Because, again, the whole point of Boy Meets World is that we are asking the difficult questions. We are challenging the audience as well as our characters to deal with. We had an entire conversation of how season 8 was about ethics and whether or not this is the right ethical.
Season 3,
season 3, the right moral thing to do, and to have Cory keep a family secret from Topanga in order to spare her hurt feelings because of what her mother asked him to do. That is fantastic television. Let's talk about her finding out and being like, you knew and you kept this from me.
Yeah.
That, to your point, that is motivation. That's story. That's conflict. But if you never bring it up, I clipped. I know I did. I did.
I love it.
I'll repeat. If we never bring it up again, what are we doing? And if we never come back to this, even in Girl Meets World, I'm like, what is everyone doing? Pencils down, everyone get out.
Can I ask you a question? If hypothetically, let's just hypothetically say, you see Topanga's parents again, and they never bring up Topanga's parents again until, like, other than like in terms of how Topanga is struggling with it, like they never come back into play at all. How would that make you feel as a Boy Meets World fan, understanding that literally everything fell apart in season 6 because of the introduction of these two characters that were only in 2 episodes?
Well, I already felt a way about. I already feel like we could have lost Jedediah, and
Yeah.
like especially in the end of season 6, and it would have worked better. So knowing that this whole central conflict that you have created and is the catalyst, if it never comes into play at all, again, I feel disrespected, and I feel like you're playing in my face. That's how I feel.
Well, we will see. I don't remember exactly. I can't say for sure, but I feel like it's probably closer to that, but we will see.
Okay, you guys, it has been a long one. We truly appreciate it. We are going to get into our like the end, wrapping it up. Bruh moment. Do you have a bruh moment?
My bruh moment was Cory going to Pittsburgh. I there's no specific thing. It was kind of all of it for me.
I'm gonna say, like, for me, it's Shawn specifically going up to Topanga, putting his hands on her.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I'm not gonna paint him as like a domestic violence person. I'm just saying the idea that he put his hand on her as she is rightfully being like, you violated my parents' privacy and made it about you, and he goes, hey, back off.
You know what's so funny? That's Panga's upset for the same thing Shawn said, hey, we shouldn't do because it's gonna like upset people. And then it upset people, and Shawn was like, hold on a second. And it was like, you knew this was gonna happen.
It's the reason in season 6 he gets tired of Cory.
Yeah.
He's like, Cory, you don't know what a boundary is, and I can't be around you right now.
And you know what? Can we just talk about how much that was a big storyline? How much of a big motivation it was that like Cory was constantly butting into Shawn's life, where he was like, remember when he signed a restraining order? He had them sign a restraining order because he was like, I don't want you involved anymore. That was part of his motivation in like disappearing for a while. And now it just seems like I said last week, he has de-evolved as a character. All of the growth that came from him realizing that Cory has toxic tendencies, that he doesn't respect boundaries. He is now like, you know what? I'm just going to be on board with this now because I don't know what else is out there. And it feels like, again, it feels like I want more for this character that I've been supporting for 6 seasons.
I completely agree. And to that point, I will say, you reminded me, even with the Shawn and Angela storyline, I was like, what we could have done is establish, because we had that conversation at the end of season 6, where he's like, hey, I went off and I left, and I realized that the people here mean that much to me, and I don't feel alone when I'm around them. If we had made that Shawn's motivation for wanting to get back with Angela, that would make their storyline work. Yeah. If he actually goes, I came back because I realized how important you are to me, and we don't have to do this alone. This thing called life alone.
I would have even liked return of like season 5, Shawn, you know, and then there was Shawn, I want to get these two back together because they're like the central family I have in my life. Like that still makes sense given his journey in season 6. And so like now that he's realized that his friends and family are so important to him, he wants to make sure that everyone's friends and family, you know, stay together or some shit. Like something like that could have worked better. I don't know.
Correct. I'm just saying like that reminded. All right. So my as I said, my bro moment was that Feeny lesson. What lesson do you take away from this episode?
At one point, Shawn says to Cory, hey, Cory, what if we really don't know anything? And I feel like that should have just been the major focus of just like, you know what, Cory, you felt so strong-willed that you knew the right way for everyone to live. You knew what was right. I'm going to fix you. I'm going to fix you. I'm going to fix you. Like, maybe you don't know. Maybe we don't know anything. And us trying to tell 40-year-olds how to live their lives is kind of hubris in a lot of ways. Like, I just wish that there would have been more focus on that. It is said, but it doesn't seem like that's the main focus of the episode.
I agree with you, because guess what? That's a good thesis statement for season 7. Hey, we still don't know what we're talking about. Yeah. We still have a lot to learn. That is great if that's the lesson that you make it at the end of this. Yeah. What grade are you giving this?
I'll give it a C-. It was better than last week, but honestly, I'm still like, I'm not entertained.
That's so funny that you said that. I gave it a C+. Here's the thing. I gave it a C+ because as chaotic and messed up as this storyline is, I did feel like the beat of starting off with Cory being like, I'm going to fix everything. And then at the end, Cory being like, hey, sometimes you can't fix everything. Shawn being like, sometimes we don't know everything. Topanga being like, yeah, I don't think my parents are getting back together. Like, I felt like that all worked. I felt like it was balanced. And I really did like the idea of, at least I did earlier, the idea of Annette, not Annette O'Toole, Marsha Cross at this point in time, coming in and saying, hey, don't tell Topanga, because I thought we were going somewhere with it. So if we aren't, I'm gonna still get a C+, but I have the right to come back and take away that plus if it never goes anywhere. Okay, you guys.
Can I just say one thing about this episode? One of the reasons why I gave it the grade I did is because I felt that there were points where even Will Friedle and all of his comedic brilliance could not save some of these broader storylines for me. And I know that this season's going to get really broad with its humor. I know, looking at these episodes coming up, there's going to be moments where Will Friedle is able to make this work and make it shine, but I feel like in this episode it was too much for me. The Kool-Aid Man kick down of the door really pulled me out of it.
I agree with you. I zero fights.
Yeah.
Okay. Now on to homework. What homework do you have?
You know what? I saw the pilot for Shrinking, and I really liked it.
Okay.
Shrinking, done by Bill Lawrence, former Boy Meets World writer. We were talking about in our Blutman episode.
I love.
It has all the joy in the heart of a Bill Lawrence show. I don't know if you've seen Scrubs, if you've seen Cougar Town, if you've seen Ted Lasso, you know that this guy writes very joyful television. And just like starting the show, I was just like, oh, that's right. I really like your writing voice. I really like the world that you tend to paint. It always makes me excited to come back. It's always like a feel good vibe. And so like, I don't know. The characters are great. Obviously, I've just saw one episode, so I'm not super into it, but I've really gotten excited about going down that road.
I love it. I have been recommended Shrinking by so many people, and I don't know why. It's one of those things where it's like, I think I need to be in the right the right headspace in order to do so, because
can I tell you?
I don't know why, but I'm so nervous of doing it. But I've loved everything that Bill Lawrence has done. I take that back. Those of you who know me know I am not a huge fan of Ted Lasso, but yeah, toxic positivity is a thing, whether or not you want to believe it. But keep going.
Oh, I was just going to say, I, for whatever reason, thought the show was a drama before I knew that his name was attached to it, when I just saw like the billboards and everything. But when I found out that it was about a therapist who's just like, you know what? I'm going to break all the conventions of what therapy should be and just be straight with you and actually help you solve this problem in a realistic, hands-on way. And we're just going to keep it between. I was like, oh, I'm kind of on board for that. Like, you're about to have a psychological break. So like, in turn, you're like trying to prevent other people from doing so. And you're actually helping people. I don't know. Like, when I learned that that's what the show was about, I was like, oh, that's exciting. That's fun. I can get on board with that.
Right. Then that's the problem with marketing, because I didn't know that that's what the show is about. I knew it had something to do with a therapist, and for some reason Harrison Ford is there. But like for example, in the pilot episode, like he's seeing a guy who has anger issues, and he's only there, and he's like, do you want to go fight right now? And he takes him to a boxing class, and he just starts, he's like, yeah, beat the shit, like go for it. And so like, it's just really interesting. It honestly does end up kind of biting him in the ass, but it was just, I'm down to go down this road. Like this, I love the way this is set up. I think this is a really fun premise. I think Jason Segel is really likable in it. Harrison Ford plays like an old curmudgeon therapist who's actually funny, and I love seeing him do comedy. I'm here for it. All right, I'm good. I'm sold. You motivated me. It's moving up the list. Ooh. Speaking of feel good, speaking of I want to come back, speaking of good times and joy, I saw Renaissance, the movie by Beyonce, a Beyonce film, and I gotta tell you, I not only saw it, I went back and I saw it again.
Oh,
and I've seen that. I love that movie.
I'm seeing it this weekend.
I won't spoil anything. But
how was your theater experience, by the way?
First of all, so the first time I went premiere night, which I usually do because I love, the thing about going the night of an opening is you get people who are dedicated and they love the movie experience.
To
That's
go
why
on
I
a
love
Thursday
going.
night. If you're going to a movie on a Thursday night, you want to be the first ones there. Yeah.
You want to be the first ones there. You usually get a very enthusiastic crowd. I can always tell whether or not the audience claps at the Nicole Kidman ad. If you are like clapping at the Nicole Kidman ad, I'm like, you came to see movies.
Yeah.
Like that's just my tell.
They make movies better.
I went to go see it, and I think I went to, because this is LA, I think I went to a showing where like a lot of people either worked or knew the people who worked on the movie, because like people were like shouting out different people and being like, oh, so and so, blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, I think everyone here knows. But I had a great time. It was so much fun. And then
did you dress up for it?
I did, and I'll show you what I dressed up as later. But like, I had a great time. But then I was like, I literally told my husband, I was like, I need a black showing. I need to watch this with more people of color. I need to watch this because, like, as great as
should we go and fly to Atlanta to watch a show?
If you don't think I would, but like,
or Houston, that's where I want to watch a show.
But I was like, I need audience participation. This is so feel good. It's did you see it at City Walk? I saw it at City Walk when I originally saw it. But I say all that to say, I saw it at a second location with my husband, and this time it was what I needed. We had audience participation. We had people filming TikToks, doing little twerks along with the music. We had like everybody jamming and singing, and it was just a very joyous occasion. And I've seen a lot of people on different platforms, the platform formerly known as Twitter. I've seen people be like, oh, if y'all doing all that, I don't want any part of it. I'm like, you don't want a part of joy? You don't want a part of communal laughing and singing, and like I that's all I wanted. Like, I don't want it for every movie experience, but this movie experience, this was only enhanced by having people who loved and enjoyed themselves as much as you knew she wanted people to do.
So I'm excited to check it out.
Check it out. Renaissance.
Renaissance.
If you just go see it. Also, something that I didn't really get to say, but she's a good filmmaker. Like, that's another thing that's so important about this. I'll talk about it more later at a different time, but I just want to say Beyonce is a really good filmmaker, and this is, you understand her style, especially if you've seen any of her other documentaries. It's so inviting and it's so good. Like, I've seen people be like, even if I didn't like her music, I stand this documentary.
I feel like one of the things that Beyonce is exceptional at, that I know she gets some like praise for, but I don't think she gets enough praise for, is like, I feel like what Michael was able to do with music videos, like that's the legacy that's being carried on with Lemonade and Black is King, and I'm sure Renaissance. This idea of like, hey, this is going to be more than just a concert. This is more than just a performance. We really need to tell a story. We need to make this visually compelling, and we need to make this something that people are going to remember. I feel like only Beyonce can kind of carry on the torch of Michael Jackson in that way.
Absolutely. And I didn't think of it that way, but I think you're right in the sense that Beyonce has understood, if I'm going to put something out, I'm Beyonce, so it's going to be an event. So why not make it the event I want it to be?
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's so great. Okay, you guys, thank you so much. As always, if you are listening to us on Spotify or Apple Music or any of the other platforms, thank you. Please follow along. If you are watching us on YouTube, hi, nice to see your face. And hopefully you will hit that subscribe button. We absolutely appreciate you guys. Do not forget that we have merch. We have a Patreon. Merch. So check out all of those things, and we will see you next week for season 7, episode 3, Angela's Men.
Angela's Men. We'll see you then, guys.
Wait. Oh, you know what? I don't want to know. Okay.
Yeah. You'll find out.
Okay, you guys, remember to dream.
Remember to try.
And to do good.
Later, bros.
This episode of Bromance World was produced by Ceej and edited by Tony Curtis. Bromance World is a 2 Free Tokens media production.
Bye.
When the spawn meets world.